I get that you might get it, but I'm really just really focused on this. When you say that President Obama is one of the most divisive presidents in history, that's something that you guys can never back up. You never can bring up any substance. It's a talking point that you guys always say. So to Abby's point, what specifically are you referring to when you say he's one of the most divisive presidents in history?
And that's there's a little bit of revisionist history. Yeah, he's incredibly eloquent. He's a very skilled orator. He's very articulate. I'll give him all of that. But he was also a very divisive figure.
How?
And can I talk? Can I talk? Thank you.
It's a legitimate
classy
question. What else? Why is Obama considered by a lot of conservatives, and maybe you're one of them, to be so incredibly divisive? Is it because he told people he was black?
Now, I'm going to need you guys to stick with me to the very end of this clip, because in this clip, we see the entire CNN panel descend on MAGA airhead Lydia Moynihan for her criticism of Barack Obama using the word divisive. And when she's pressed on why Barack Obama was a divisive president, she completely falls apart and cannot answer the question. Now, I need you guys to stick with me, because I want to give you guys, as a young black man, what I believe is the reason why she uses the word divisive as well as the rest of MAGA. As usual, let's watch the clip in full. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts towards the end.
Tonight, the Obama Presidential Center is officially open. All 4 other living former presidents and first ladies attending the opening ceremonies on the south side of Chicago today, along with a number of celebrities. President Obama took the podium and encouraged Americans not to lose faith in each other and to remember that collective voices and how we treat each other matters. Forgetting that fact, he says, only gives power to those trying to divide us.
For us to give in now, after all this country's been through, to cynicism and division would be a betrayal of our founding ideas. And I remain convinced that the overwhelming majority of Americans feel the same way.
So in some ways, this was like church for liberals. It was. Everybody was dressed in their Sunday finest and sitting in the pews. And he was delivering a message about, not just about that, but also actually, there was a lot of contrast happening about Trump in the remarks from him. And I'll play some a little bit later from Michelle Obama. What did you make of it?
You know, I really thought it was great that he didn't mention Trump's name one time. You know, he didn't mention him one time. And I think that, frankly, America got to get a chance to remember what it was like to have a president that could really give speeches that united us as a country. And I think what's really interesting is that, you know, Trump spent decades criticizing Barack Obama on literally everything that he could do. And then ultimately, he got a chance to see on the day that, you know, Obama opened up his presidential center, Trump got to negotiate a pretty bad deal. And I think that it's really just a reflection of why it's important to talk about history. I think a lot of people are going to be able to learn about the JCPOA. And as this MOU comes into fruition, they'll be able to see exactly the contrast there.
I do want to play this from Michelle Obama, because she alludes to these attacks on her husband from people like Trump, for example. Here's what she said.
The claims that a U.S. senator and constitutional law expert wasn't qualified for the job. The lies about your birthright, your faith, your patriotism. The outrage when you stated the biological fact that if you'd had a son, that he too would be black. Yet, you were unflappable at every turn, always focused, always calm, always looking at the long view.
And what she's not saying there is that that is a contrast with the guy in the White House right now.
You know, the words we didn't hear from these remarks today: sucker, loser, piggy, stupid, fake news, idiot. It's a permission structure when a president uses those terms for our children to hear it and our children to want to use those terms as well. It's modeling the worst of rhetoric and the worst of behavior. President Obama, First Lady Obama, didn't invoke the name calling that has gotten in a cancerous way into our political bloodstream and makes us not want to expose our children to the highest people in power.
And Mark, I saw you nodding. I mean, do you agree with that?
I do. I have, as I think you know, tremendous respect for President Obama. I had the privilege of actually being in Grant Park on election night with the Obamas and the Bidens, watching the results of that campaign. I'll never forget that moment. And I think what this was really about, I don't think this would have been the place for that kind of political rhetoric. This was not a political event. This is the dedication of a presidential library. And he did it and gave that speech with the class and grace that is consistent with Barack Obama. I might not have agreed with all of his policies, but when it comes to being someone that was, I think, a president that crossed party lines, and I think we'll see later on remains very highly popular from people that both lean right and left. I think what we saw today was consistent.
Okay.
And that's
There's
exactly
a little
what
bit
President
of revisionist history. Yeah, he's incredibly eloquent. He's very skilled orator. He's very articulate. I'll give him all of that. But he was also a very divisive figure.
How?
And can I talk? Can I talk? Thank you.
This is a good one.
Look, we saw it was on full display. They open it up with perhaps the most performative woke thing you can do, a land acknowledgement. Really? You're going to say this is on stolen land? If you think it's on stolen land, if you think it's on stolen land, then give it back.
This is all you. I mean, this is like Tan Suit 2.0.
Don't build an $850 million library on it. The other thing is, I like the idea that he united Americans, but I don't think most conservatives.
But how is he the
conservatives
most
who were
divisive
targeted by the
president, Lydia?
IRS, nuns who were told they had to pay for abortions and contraceptives. And he was
But how
very
is he the
divisive
most
when
Can I
he
just
actually
say, when we're
wasn't on
talking
it.
about things that using federal government, first of all, Obama did not target the federal government for his opponents. That is something that Trump is doing.
Well, I think
Hold on. I let you talk.
Christians
He also did not do that. What I will say, one of the bigger contrasts, I think, that has not been mentioned, I think, over the coverage is you have to remember that when Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump, it was Barack Obama who called Hillary Clinton and told her, you need to concede. And he understood that there needed to be a peaceful transfer of power, and he told her that. Then what happened? He welcomed the Trumps to the House, to the White House. He ensured that they had what they needed in order to have a peaceful transition. Take that, and then take January 6th. And look at that contrast. I'm not done. But listen to that contrast. Then there is also Barack Obama has done a lot to raise the next generation of leaders, while you have Donald Trump, who is just saying, I anoint people.
Well, let me let Lydia respond to that, because I hear you saying, first of all, you're accusing Obama of personally doing something that
his administration.
Well, we know that what you're talking about at the IRS was the responsibility of individuals within the IRS who were held responsible for that. That had nothing to do with Obama. Right. And you've never nobody has provided proof that that came from the White House or from the president's office. The second thing that you mentioned, which is basically abortion policy, I take it that is your view of how that policy should operate in this country. But you have to understand that another half of the country believes the opposite of what you believe. Right. So when you talk about divisiveness, Barack Obama was smeared as not being a legitimate president because Trump was lying that he was not a native-born American citizen. And then he welcomed that same man into the White House. Right. Their wives sat down and had tea. So what else?
I think Obama is incredibly
question.
I think he's incredibly
It's a legitimate
classy.
question. What else? Why is Obama considered by a lot of conservatives, and maybe you're one of them, to be so incredibly divisive? Is it because he told people he was black?
Right.
No, no. I think he's incredibly classy. He's a very eloquent speaker. I think there's a lot of things to credit him for.
Lydia,
I'm
how
saying his
is he
policies. You know, and I will credit him for this as well. He said that he thinks America is great today. I think he said the U.S. is an undeniable force for good in the world. And I was glad to hear him say that, because when he was in office, he would go on these sort of tours essentially apologizing for America. And I look at the Democratic Party today, 36% of whom are not proud.
Last year, Donald Trump went to the Middle East, and he said that America's past policies of regime change in that region had been a failure. Right. And that it was that we were trying to basically overtake these great societies. He was literally what you guys accuse Obama of doing. Trump went to the Middle East and said that we've been trying to change your societies and we have failed, and we've been trying to export our way of doing things on you. He said that last year.
Right.
So I am not understanding this. Like,
Well,
or at least I want to see more evidence. I would like to
respect,
see more evidence.
certain-
That's all I would like to see.
In that respect, circumstances changed a bit, right? Iran advanced their nuclear program much more rapidly than expected. There were changes in
that's
the,
not
in
even
the
what I'm
shifting
talking about.
sands.
I'm talking what
But-
Trump was talking about was the U.S. military involvement in the Middle East,
I know
Iraq and
what you're talking
Afghanistan
about.
wars, and beyond. It was a very broad statement. She just said Obama was apologizing for the United States around the world. Where's the evidence? That's all I'm asking.
Well, so I think we're missing the point of what President Obama was trying to say during the speech. This was not an anti-Trump speech. This was not, let's, get back at him. This was, we need to come back together as a nation. We shouldn't have states opting out of the 250th anniversary celebration in D.C. as a political statement. That I heard that this morning. It was absolutely heartbreaking news to hear that that's even being considered. And I don't think that Barack Obama is terribly happy with the state of his own party right now.
Yeah.
It looks very different than it did when he was in the Oval Office. It's much more polarized. It's been had quite a lot of woke and other influences that I don't think that Barack Obama was a woke president. That wasn't even a thing when he was.
But look, here's the thing. I get that you might get it, but I'm really focused on this. When you say that President Obama is one of the most divisive presidents in history, that's something that you guys can never back up. You never can bring up any substance. It's a talking point that you guys always say. So to Abby's point, what specifically are you referring to when you say he's one of the most divisive presidents in history?
He did not invite Milli Vanilli to the library party today, or Vanilla Ice, or CNC Music Factory. That's a difference from the American 250.
Right.
That
Didn't
is a
have
big
that on
difference
my
from the
bingo
American
card
250.
for sure.
That is very true. Next for us, a new book reveals how the
So I'm going to be real with you guys. I'm very unhappy with Abby in this segment. And the reason why I'm unhappy is because this is the problem. When MAGA do stuff like this, you can't just move on. You can't just let it slide. You have to make her back up her claim. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, and I'm just going to say it. Some of you guys may unfollow me. Some of you guys may say, don't make this a racial thing. That's fine. But listen, I'm going to keep it real. The reason why they say he was divisive is simply because of the fact that he was black. That was it. I'm just going to say it outright. It was because he was black. That was the reason. You see, with these guys, divisive is basically the polite word that Republicans reach for when they think that Barack Obama is an illegitimate president. That is what it is that they really mean. And the reason why they believe he's an illegitimate president is because of the birther lie that Donald Trump came into office spreading. It wasn't a fringe theory. It was literally the founding document of the modern GOP. And the man who built that brand now sits in the White House. Think to yourself, why is it that MAGA are so okay and so comfortable all of a sudden with being so racist? It's because of the fact that that's how Donald Trump came into office. Pushing racism. They had absolutely no problem with it. Now, this is the reality. Obama did not divide the United States of America. What he did is he held up a mirror to the United States, and a certain slice of the American public didn't like what it was looking back at. They didn't like it. And that's MAGA. That's the GOP. That's a certain section of Republicans. If you guys remember, a congressman screamed, "You lie," at Barack Obama on the floor of the House all those years ago. That wasn't Barack Obama who done that. Because guess what? If Barack Obama would have done that, these guys would have absolutely killed him for it. Look at how it is that they conducted themselves when he wore a tan suit. He got treated as if it was a national emergency. And that tells you that his offense was never ever the policy that it is that he made. His offense was simply just being who he is that he was. Because of the fact that a man who had ego problems literally came into office and built his whole existence around someone being an illegitimate president. Now think about it. When the same people who call Obama divisive, they call January 6th tourism. They say January 6thers were let into the were let into the building. That's what it is that these guys say. That tells you everything that you need to know about what the word really means. Because when you contrast Donald Trump with Barack Obama, there's only one of those individuals that is divisive, and that is Donald Trump. But they won't say that. Why won't they say that? Because he's a white man. Barack Obama was head and shoulders above what Donald Trump is. And that's the reason as to why Donald Trump finds himself in the pickle that he's in now. Because of the fact that he was so obsessed and so against Barack Obama. He tore up the JCPOA, something that kept Iran in check. And as a result of that now, he's pretty much ruined his legacy if all the reports of this MOU turn out to be true. I'm so disappointed with Abby. You cannot move on. Lydia Moynihan should have been made to explain her stance, because look at her looking like a dog in the mist. Absolutely no clue. Couldn't respond. Couldn't answer the question. Honestly, just really frustrates me, man. I'm sorry, and I hope you guys don't unsubscribe. But that's the reason why they use the word divisive. That's the reason as to why. Simply because of the fact that he was a black man who held the mirror up to the United States of America, and a certain portion of the United States didn't like what they saw. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. See you guys in the next one.